unvariable rights it just fine. We can see Caleb Durward on the right here, and
David Thomas is on the
David
left-hand side.
Thomas.
That's a name that sounds familiar, and I think I recognize David here.
Let's see if we can
find him. I'm pretty
find
certain
him.
that he's done well in some SCG events prior to this.
I think that you're right, but I can't remember. At this point, one of the things with having so many awesome tournaments is that we really do have a roster of players that have done very well over time here.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh my goodness!
Ooh.
David Thomas, he won in Kansas City.
Okay, that's where the name sounded familiar.
Not even a month and a half ago.
He was the player who first won with the Delver deck.
Yeah, he was the Delver guy.
Gotcha. All right.
Delver and Tarmogoyf, Snapcaster Oh My. Today, and he also second placed with Dredge almost half a year ago. And he has played Solar Flare in the past, actually. He top 4'd in Kansas City with a Solar Flare deck, and top 8'd in Tennessee, in Nashville, with a Solar Flare deck. So he has no stranger to Solar Flare success.
So players rolling the die right now. Looks like they had a tie, rolling again. So who do you think has the edge here?
I actually think that it's really strongly in Caleb's corner.
Really?
Because the thing is he's got... Oh, wait a second. I thought that the Dismember... Okay, 1 second. 3 Dissipate versus... Yeah, actually, I'm going to say Caleb. I like Dissipate over Liliana unless David is on the draw and drops the Liliana on turn 3. I think the Dissipate are going to take over the match.
Yeah, having more hard counters than your opponent in a mirror like this is definitely a big deal. David has a lot of cards in his deck that are dedicated to his big creature reanimation plan, and that can cause him to fall behind.
We've got turn 3 right now. 2 blue sources from Caleb, total of 3 mana, and David Thomas also with three blue sources. And they both are just going draw, go. And we saw, what was that? He drew 2 cards there for some reason. I guess he thinked at the end of the turn and then drew. There we go.
So
Caleb might not have a 4th land. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's a discard. He does have a Forbidden Alchemy in his hand.
So we saw earlier, and Caleb going for the Forbidden Alchemy here.
And that's going to be countered.
Now we see the mana leak,
Now remember in the last match that we saw this where we did not see that counterspell. And I think this is a really, really critical thing to do. Caleb draws the land out the top anyway. But if you don't see that mana from your opponent, stopping the alchemy to keep them from having the land is a big deal in this kind of matchup.
Though in David's deck, he only has the mana leaks for counter magic, so it can be sometimes a very scarce resource that you can't necessarily afford.
Incredibly scarce.
But it looks like Caleb has peeled 2 land right off the top, so that attempt to keep him off of his mana with mana leak on his alchemy is not proving fruitful. David Thomas is getting his Snapcaster beat down on, and Caleb draws yet another land. Snap you. And
here we go. Meow, 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 meow.
White Sun Zenith, which sadly goes to the yard rather than the deck,
That's
where it
right.
likes to be.
If only he had 3 more in his deck.
And probably a lot less black mana.
He would have to have a lot less black mana. And land on all sides. Snapcaster beating down. Caleb down to 16 life. We see a 5 cast here. I expect, Gideon getting a Dissipate out of there. The commanding drop of the Dissipate.
Boom!
Yeah.
Out of here.
Put it down very firmly with his hand there. Out of this matchup, David's deck is definitely the beatdown. He can't afford to wait to the infinite time horizon because Caleb will take over.
Yeah, that's what happens when one player has a high concentration or really any hard counters and one player does not.
We see a Snapcaster perhaps on Kitty Cats.
Yeah.
Meow, 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 meow.
So what happens here? Does it go to the deck or does it remove?
Removed. Out of there. And here we have 2 cats.
Oh,
whoa. Stop that play there. Get the judge to stop that.
So
that White Sun Zenith does not get shuffled in. It's being flashed back. I've played it infinite times on Moto.
As Caleb freezes. Looks like, yeah. So we
Okay.
communicated this to the judges that this is apparently not how the
Yeah.
system
Now,
works.
one of the things about this, you would think that there would be a choice, but because of the way that flashback works, flashback, the cost of the card is to remove it from the game.
Ah, gotcha. So part of the resolution of the ability of White Sun Zenith is to shuffle it into your deck, so...
Now, yeah, White Sun Zenith is a card I've played with a lot in the last many months.
Kind of funny that we were like, so what happens here then? Oh, no, the wrong thing, stop!
Okay, now we have 6 power here for Caleb. Caleb, switching the gears around. David is on a 4-turn clock. That Snapcaster actually still just chasing the race, saying, I don't think you're going to be able to stop this next thing I'm going to do. He's got a mana leak to be able to control it. Day of Judgment, and wow, Caleb's willing to fight over the Day of Judgment. I would not fight over this. Unless he's got a handful of goodness, I would not fight over that day.
He's snap dissipating. He wants to go beat downs.
Wow.
And it's out of there. Well, Caleb is attacking for 8 next turn?
Yep. 6, then 8 puts David at 6. Well, I mean, actually, maybe that's okay. He's got
David's in a pretty rough spot now.
He's got 6 mana left. Okay, the math actually works out, so that's not terrible. There's a 1-turn clock now for David to be able to be in this game.
Looks like David has, I believe that's Elish Norn in his hand.
Elish Norn is a very expensive spell.
Yes, it is. And I believe I saw Mana Leak in Caleb's hand. So, Oblivion Ring,
That
killing
actually,
a cat.
that actually goes a long way towards blunting the damage. I mean, if he's got like a Doomblade in his hand or anything like that, then he's on a 3-turn clock.
It looks like Caleb has Oblivion Ring in his own.
Oh boy, that's a rough one.
So, Caleb is this still the...
This is still the main phase.
So David is debating, I wonder what.
I think he's considering, he's only got 6 mana available, is that correct? Maybe just cast, he's got a Doomblade in his hand. There is a Doomblade there.
Nope.
Sun Titan. Into the leak, I think.
I don't know that I would... Yeah.
I don't like that play.
I would not do that.
I don't like that play at all.
He's actually just dead now. He's just going to get Mana Leak, then Oblivion Ring.
And then
Yeah,
here's
and
my
there it
O-ring.
is. So yeah, I think if I were David, I would have waited and just said go, and then tried to cast my Sun Turret in the following turn when I could pay for Mana Leak.
Actually, I would say I would wait, and then on the following turn cast Elish Norn.
Or I would have cast Sun Titan up front rather than casting the Oblivion Ring.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think he had an Elish Norn in his hand, I think.
Did he?
Maybe.
I think I saw an Elish Norn. I may have mistaken Sun Titan for Elish.
I was trusting on your eyesight,
Yeah.
But if he did not...
Getting old, man. Getting old.
Okay, so David Thomas, his board cards, Nihil Spellbomb is not terrible against Snapcasters.
And 2 Dissipate.
2 Dissipate is great, and I actually think Batterskull is actually quite powerful in this fight.
Okay.
Basically because you've got so few cards that actually matter. Having a card that can be very resilient against like hate, like Oblivion Rings, things like that, is actually effective.
Caleb has, it looks like...
Blue Sun Zenith is going to be
Blue Sun
huge.
Zenith, a pair of Nihil Spellbombs, which are much more powerful than his opponent's Nihil Spellbombs, as David Thomas is on much more of a Reanimator plan.
Ooh, I see another crazy good
Jace
card.
Memory Adept.
Yep.
Negate and Volition.
Okay, Caleb starts out, I think, in the driver's seat, and I think what happens here is he just basically grabs his opponent and throttles him after sideboard.
Yeah, his deck looks like it is, as we saw, pretty well set up for the first game with a lot more ability to fight those long game fights.
Yeah.
And after sideboarding brings in a lot of powerful cards.
I mean, I'd be willing to bet that the matchup game 1 is about 60 to 65% Caleb, and
You're not allowed to bet on Magic.
Oh, good point. And game 2, 3, I bet you he goes up to 70, 75%. And with those kinds of numbers, and obviously I'm just kind of conjecturing there, but if that was even like remotely accurate, what would we be talking about? I said 60 and 70. Give me half a second and I'll tell you.
Uh-oh, doing some math.
Yeah, math is hard. The math says... as soon as I open up my little file, that just does it for me. Meanwhile, not only I think does Caleb have the advantage just in terms of his main and sideboard, but being up game 1 is such a huge deal. So yeah, 60 and then 70. That would put it as a 75% matchup if 60 and 70 were the numbers.
That's and being up game 1.
Yep.
Even better.
Yep.
That is something that I think a lot of people don't really recognize is just how much more important sideboarded games are than game 1.
Oh, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And actually, once you actually make that realization about how much more important sideboarded games are, when you're in playtest groups and you discover that they are not doing sideboarded games, it can be pretty maddening.
Oh,
because you're like, okay, yeah, you're right. My deck only wins 40% against that deck until we sideboard.
Yep. It's definitely a huge deal to understand that you play twice as many sideboard games as you do main deck games over the course of a tournament, assuming you're magically going to 3 games.
Yeah, let's do a thought experiment here. You have a 30% chance to win game 1. How good does your sideboarder game have to do to make it a 50% matchup? Only 30% to win game 1. How good do you have to be in game 2, 3?
It's like a little over 60.
60.
Yeah.
60 puts you over 50% on the matchup.
So it's definitely the amount of impact that sideboard cards can have, and this is when people talk about how important having a sideboard plan, having a well thought out sideboard structure is. It's even more important than most people realize.
Absolutely.
Even when they think it's important.
I mean, there's a reason that I did the math one day and just saved the sheet so I could just always look at it if I needed to figure out what I was doing when it comes to how much do I need to work to try to make this matchup work, or is it even worth it?
Right.
Because another thing to do sometimes with a bad matchup is abandon ship and just say, well, if I play against it, that's it. That's fine.
Yeah, I remember back in 2000, the World Championships.
That was a good year.
When John Finkel won and Bob Maher took second
Yes.
place. They did so with a Tinker deck that our group worked very hard on, that a lot of people dismissed Tinker as a viable deck because of the popularity of Replenish. And it was actually a sideboarding strategy that we discovered that involved Rising Waters, because
nice.
The general plan of the Tinker deck against control decks was to lock them down as Mishra's Helix, but the frantic searches from the Replenish deck could often just counteract that.
Yeah.
But if you boarded in Rising Waters, you're able to lock down and annuls and miscalculations. They're all in your deck for various other reasons as well. You're able to sufficiently improve the matchup, which was virtually unwinnable in game 1, to actually be extremely advantageous in
Absolutely.
games.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the decks I was working on for this World season, it had about a 33% matchup for game 1, but after game sideboarding, you went up to 66%, and that actually is a 1 match.
Yeah, that's huge.
They have finally, they're still shuffling. Caleb going back to his sideboard. Now, one of the things I actually really like doing in matches is I really like having my little timer there with the stopwatch feature and doing the lap button when we start sideboarding, because I learned a long time ago at a Grand Prix that people can take a lot longer than 3 minutes sideboarding if you don't police it. And this has definitely been more than 3 minutes sideboarding.
They're taking their time.
I mean, you have 3 minutes to sideboard and present. That's actually not that long of a time if you think about it.
Yeah, it really isn't. And I've definitely gotten slow play warnings for failing to sideboard within that time. And if judges are watching for that sort of thing, you definitely don't want to accumulate those warnings, because they can come back to haunt you.
Yeah, and I mean, even in for example, in the Grand Prix where I first started noticing that this was an issue, I basically ended up getting 2 draws where I had time to win, but my opponent had taken so long in both of those matchups sideboarding that they ate the clock.
Yeah.
And that was a lesson to me, to not let my opponent eat the clock like that.
It's important.
And here we have the beginning.
Right,
it's going to be, I'm going to guess, several turns of land. What is your prediction?
I agree with you that I think Caleb Durward is definitely significantly favored here. So
Turn 2 on the play, drops the think twice.
Interesting. So that's a pretty clear indication that Caleb is short of land,
or it could be a bluff if he's going next level.
Yeah, that's something that I would doubt. So David Thomas here I'm guessing his hand also has Think Twice because he kept a hand with a turn 1 Ghost Quarter into Traveler's Amulet. So I think it's not unreasonable for Caleb to attack his card drawing here, though it looks like he does have another land in his hand. So maybe he was just on the super bluff.
And Nile Spellbomb. Oh, Caleb says go. Nah. Hey.
Does he not have? He has another Think Twice though.
Okay, 2 chances to draw, and David in response casts the Forbidden Alchemy. I like that play from David, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Getting it in while he can.
Yeah, if it's important.
Caleb has a land. He's got his 3rd land, which means he's going to have access to his Forbidden Alchemy in his hand and to flashing back Think Twice.
Yep, so definitely overcoming those stumbles. Think Twice is a card that, as much as I generally don't like it, it is a card that in a deck that needs a critical mass of mana can help you dig to get that without you having to play tons and tons of land.
Absolutely. So Caleb casts Think Twice with flashback at the end of the turn, and then draws 2 cards, one for the Think Twice, one for the draw phase, says go. Meanwhile, we see another Forbidden Alchemy, I think, there from David Thomas. The Spellbomb just hanging out, waiting for its work to be done.
So Caleb...
And he thinks again. I don't like that cast of the Think Twice there, honestly.
Neither
he
do
had
I.
a land. Now he's going to have to discard.
Right. If anything, I would cast the Forbidden Alchemy from my hand.
Absolutely, because then you can keep your same hand size.
I definitely agree with you.
And
I think that flashing that back there was not the optimal play.
Usually one of the things that happens in this style of matchup, less so with what David Thomas is playing, because David Thomas has so few counter spells as opposed to many decks like this. One of the things that often happens is you get to a point where you both have 7 cards in hand, and then somebody rocks the boat enough where you have a flurry of turns where you both do big, crazy things.
Just
and then
casting a Snapcaster?
Main phase so he doesn't have to discard.
Yeah.
Another play I don't like.
I definitely am not a fan of that.
Caleb is playing a little too aggressively. From what he told me, he hasn't played this deck very much.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think I would have cast the Forbidden Alchemy rather than Think Twice last turn and not had 8 cards in my hand.
Well, when we were talking before about the small resource exchanges, right? Discarding a card, or even in this case, not getting value out of a Snapcaster, having 2 mana tapped down, all of those are things that right now David Thomas could potentially take advantage of.
Yeah, he could play
a Liliana
here
plus
and
a
counter.
card. Yeah. Let's see what happens. This is an opportunity for him.
And he does just that.
And I think we're going to see a mana leak from Caleb, maybe a Dissipate. And then let's see if it gets countered back.
And this is exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah. Now imagine, I think he has a mana leak in his hand. If Caleb just had discarded,
right?
If he had just discarded, there would not be a Liliana in play.
Yeah. If he had not put himself in a position where he would have to discard by just casting the Forbidden Alchemy from his hand rather than flashing back the Think Twice.
I mean,
he would be in a lot better shape.
When I see plays like that, the first time around, I'm like, well, that was somebody that has not practiced this matchup enough.
And Consecrated Sphinx does come down.
And I don't think that's...
Upkeep, it's dead.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be very effective.
So Caleb here sitting with a fistful of your active cards, which is just what Liliana likes to feast upon. If only David Thomas had some Proliferate.
One of the things that Mr. Brian Kibler here was doing the other night was definitely schooling me with Proliferate and Liliana of the Veil.
Contagion Clasp. You get a poison counter. Liliana gets a loyalty counter. Oh dear.
Caleb is definitely in real trouble right now. Caleb untaps.
Oh, he did not choose to plus Liliana though.
What is his hand? Does he love every card in his hand?
I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Well, that looks like Elishnorn. What?
Whoa! What is the Liliana doing here? You got to use that thing.
I mean, if nothing else, you want to boost its loyalty so you can keep it alive through a Snapcaster attack, so it can kill a creature Caleb might play. David's just not. He's not riding the fact that he got to resolve a Liliana.
And we have a Snapcaster.
going to be a Snap Alchemy. So, and the Alchemy, does Caleb let it resolve? Does he mana leak it?
At this point, I think I let it resolve.
Yeah,
I think
I
that there's
agree.
not enough resources from an economic standpoint for Caleb to use it. The Alchemy has already done its damage. There's already 7 mana out there. 8 mana, actually.
If you feel that you are going to make a top 8, we would like you to do the following favor.
See, I still don't agree with that.
And bring it to my friends over.
I still don't agree with that Liliana play here. I definitely would have been
Really aggressive with it.
yeah. The ultimate in Liliana is devastating.
Yeah. I mean,
people don't. They're like, oh, just make some stacks and lands. Yeah, lands are very important.
Yes.
And you get to choose which lands you put in each pile. You're like, okay, well, you can have this pile that has all of your blue sources, or this pile that has the rest of your land.
like, I think that a lot of times people struggle with understanding what their role is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, David is the beatdown, and he's trying to be a control deck here. You know, like I just
He needs to be aggressively using the Liliana to put Caleb in a position where he has
Yeah.
to deal with it. Right now, Liliana's just he can just ignore it.
now for people out there looking to get better. If you have not already read Mike Flores' Who's the Beatdown, run, do not walk to your nearest browser and read it. Who's the Beatdown? It's on Star City Games in our archives.
I think Caleb may even have an Oblivion Ring in his hand that he's just ignoring Liliana. Because
Yeah, because he's
David
not
David is
using
not
it.
using it in a threatening way, which is totally fine on Caleb's part. But
Caleb's playing this great.
Yeah.
You know, you've got it's like, someone has a weapon on the table and they just let it sit there while you shoot at them.
what David's actually going to do, he's going to wait until he can Tezzer's Gambit 5 times in a single turn, and then Ultimate Liliana.
Ah, excellent idea.
Also, players.
Steady progress.
Says go. End of the turn, Forbidden Alchemy.
If you have any purchases or sales you'd like to make, please do so in the next 20
So Caleb picks up a Nihil Spellbomb on his own. As we were saying, much more potent than the ones in David's deck.
Doors will be open bright early tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
Looks like Caleb drew a Sphinx.
Our dealers would like to wrap things up at the end of this round.
I mean, if I were Caleb, I would be thanking my lucky stars. Just Snapcaster number
Snapcaster.
2 from David Thomas.
I think this is in response to Nihil Spellbomb.
I think you're correct. Dissipate from Mirage. Dissipates.
All right. I use a lot of those dissipates.
Oh, me too. I definitely made sure to get some online to play with.
So Caleb debating his play here. He has, looks like, Consecrated Sphinx.
It looks like there's an earthquake happening over there too. I can see the screen shifting.
All right. So
Consecrated Sphinx. What do we see happening there?
I think he's
Something-
casting I'm looking. I think he's
Appears to
casting
be countered with something.
he's.
I think he's dissipating it by using a Ghost Quarter on his own land
I thought
to
he
get
had
an
his Doomblade.
island.
I might have been looking at Caleb's hand and thought he had the Doomblade, as Caleb was the one with the Doomblade. So
Yeah, that's a mana leak. He
Yep.
Ghost Quarter is one of his white sources to be able to get an island to be able to mana leak.
okay. So
Caleb's graveyard is stretching a crowd out across the red zone.
either that or he's got a lot of stuff in play that we haven't really been paying attention to. So David, with 2 Snapcasters now, taking slightly bigger chunks of Caleb's life total, but not threatening ones, really. And again, that Liliana's just been sitting there, hanging out.
Okay, Liliana says, let's discard. Caleb discards a Mana Leak. Now, Liliana at this point could have nuked the world and then been close to nuking the world again.
Well, I'm pretty certain that if David had been using Liliana's turn, Caleb would have used a Oblivion Ring.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But I mean, realistically, David just hasn't put Caleb in a position that he's been.
Sun Titan comes down. Ouch.
I mean, I don't
Judgment?
like that. I don't like that.
Oh
play.
yeah, he plays into a potential day from his opponent.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of what's going on here.
What's going to happen? He's going to get a Phantasmal Image, which is going to get a land.
He just paid 6 for a Darkwater Catacomb.
That's a rampant growth, really. 6 mana rampant growth.
I mean, granted, he doesn't know that Caleb has day in his hand, but Caleb's
I mean, the danger is so huge.
While, yeah.
What does David have in his hand? Anything?
If
he's got nothing, maybe you just go for it and hope that Caleb has nothing.
Boom.
Day,
goes the dynamite.
away goes the world. And then Caleb has got to consider holding up mana or leaving the... He says, that's fine. I'll let you Liliana again.
See, David already had pressure. I don't understand that play. He already has a 3-turn clock with those Snapcasters. What's the motivation to cast Sun Titan there?
I think the only motivation is if he thinks he can't hold on to it for whatever reason.
There's also one thing that is worth taking into consideration is the time left in the round. Caleb is up 1-0, and these games can take a long time to actually finish.
Caleb discards a Forbidden Alchemy to Liliana. Liliana is now at 4 counters. I think we're going to see the Oblivion Ring coming actually pretty soon.
Yeah, it has to. Otherwise, Caleb is going to lose all his land, or at least the half that he decides he would like to keep.
I think David is considering not using the Nile Spellbomb right now. He's got a Batter Skull in his hand. Is that what that is?
Unreasonable. Yeah, it looks like Batter Skull. Yeah, I think this is Spellbomb you. I mean, he should recognize at this point that Spellbomb isn't a particularly powerful card against Caleb's deck. The cards that he's hitting are Alchemies and Think Twice. No, he passes the turn back without using Liliana.
No, he used.
No, he did. You're right. He did.
Yeah. Liliana hit Forbidden Alchemy and something else.
So Caleb's hand is another Alchemy, Oblivion Ring, Dissipate. So I think he's gonna finally take care of Liliana, as it has finally started to become a threat.
And Oblivion Ring is finally cast.
And David casts Alchemy.
We have hit the 12-hour mark for Magic the Gathering. You've been watching 12 hours of Magic here at Star City Games Live here in St. Louis. I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Brian Kibler. We're watching Caleb Durward playing Esper Control. This is game 2 against David Thomas playing Solar Flare. Top 8 is on the line as Caleb Durward is up 1-0. He has an Oblivion Ring out that's holding back a Liliana Vess, and otherwise they both have cards in their hand and land in play. Caleb has been chunked down to about 12 life, and David, in the more aggressive role in this matchup, struggling to find a way to actually, get through, essentially. We feel like he might have been able to do more with his... here's a Batter Skull. Safe from a Mana Leak, but not safe from a Dissipate.
Out of here. And yeah, in this position, particularly given the fact that he's up 1-0 in the match, Caleb is in no rush.
No rush.
He doesn't need to... he has more counter magic. He has a bunch of alchemies. One in his yard here that David may take away with that Nihil Spellbomb at some point. But
he says go, and I think end of the turn, is he going to do it? I think end of the turn he's Nihiling.
Yep. He decided to go for it.
There we go. And if you're Caleb, I think you just have to let it happen. I don't think you can afford to tap out.
I don't think you let him.
I mean,
Caleb cast Mana Leak something crazy.
A Mana Leak plus draw card would be pretty good for David.
I mean, he could potentially just play something grotesque this turn.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have Jenga taxes, so they have like 1,000,000 mana.
David's deck has 3 Sun Titans. He's already got a Phantasmal Image in the yard, so we would see something crazy happen like Sun Titan Image, etc. What do we have here?
Burial Rites, Caleb Alchemies in response.
This is a dangerous moment for Caleb. Caleb could lose right here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything. Is that a Dissipate?
That's a Think Twice, I think.
Oy vey.
And Think Twice isn't going to cut it.
And that resolves. I think we're going to see a Sun Titan making a Phantasmal image.
Sun Titan make an image. Does he have a Oblivion Ring or a Liliana in his yard?
I don't think he has a Liliana, but I think he does have... I don't know about the Oblivion Ring. It's been a while. I can't remember. Phantasmal
I don't
image.
recall an Oblivion Ring ever not entering play, but it may have. That looked like an Oblivion Ring when they just went by. It may have gotten sent to the graveyard by Forbidden Alchemy at some point.
And maybe we're going to see a Nihil Spellbomb come back.
Is that white card? What is that white card?
I can't tell. There's nothing for him
he's
to...
fingering it, so I think that's Oblivion Ring.
There's an O-ring still in play. It's slightly off.
There it is.
O-ring
so
on O-ring.
on the O-ring, and now he has Liliana back.
And now, please, David Thomas, make people discard. There we go. And there goes a land for both players. End of the turn, think twice for Caleb. There's a Doomblade in Caleb's hand. Caleb crumbling right now.
Yeah, this is his position here is falling apart. He looked to be in serious command of this game, but David Thomas was just able to draw that very key Unburial Rights that really got him back into a pretty dominating position here.
And in comes the Phantasmal Image version of Sun Titan, recovering perhaps a Nihil Spellbomb or a Snapcaster Mage.
I imagine that's going to get a Spellbomb.
There it is, card drawing on a stick.
So fire that Spellbomb off. I think I would just fire it off right away.
I agree.
Force him to commit the mana right now.
There you go. Oh, maybe not. What's he doing? Unburial Rightsing again.
Really?
You've got the board. He's dead.
You have everything. Oh, okay. For
Wormcoil is
that's okay.
That's an insurance policy.
That's not unreasonable.
Because if it dies, it still has.
So if he Day of Judgments, Kalo has to deal with both the entire board and the resulting tokens.
Caleb thinks in response to the the Oblivion, the Nihil Spellbomb. I don't know if there's an Oblivion Spellbomb.
I don't believe.
I don't think so. And then he pays for the mana leak. There's a Wormcoil Engine out, and David Thomas tapped out. Caleb Durward really in trouble here. He would do okay if he cast a Volition Reigns, though.
He cast Day and
dies.
They're going to game 3.
Day and death. And how much time do we have left?
We are definitely short on time in the round. So this game 3 is going to have to be a very quick one if either of these players is going to come out of this with a win.
Now, what would be really, really frustrating for both of these players is if they're coming into the end of time and neither of them has a clear victory at hand.
Yep.
I mean, both of these players, I think, David Thomas, he has top-8'd before with Solar Flare. He has a win under his belt with the Rug Delver deck. Caleb, certainly no stranger to success in the Star City Games Open Circuit. These guys, I don't know how well they know each other, but with the player club being a little bit different this season, it's not like there's going to be an easy concession for the person to advance in the player club.
Yeah.
And they might not even know each other well enough to want to make that offer.
It looks like they may be discussing, if we're in a position where one player's clearly ahead, like let's agree that that player will win the match. So while it is not legal to have the result of the match be
randomly
come from a random result or from any sort of agreement that involves any sort of compensation to either player or anything like that. It is perfectly legal to have an agreement with your opponent that if you both agree that one player is ahead when time is called, that player will get the win.
Now, one of the things about this is not a binding agreement.
Right, absolutely.
And so essentially what you're doing is you're putting your reputation on the line. And I know people who have definitely done the take backsies on the
look at this.
Oh, look at this beatdown. Caleb Durward coming in for 2.
Ya.
I know people that have taken the take backsies on the offer. And all that does is, sure, perhaps they don't lose that game, but their reputation is tarnished for a long time.
Oh, Caleb going very aggro here.
No wink back. Ricky Hayashi coming on by, being awesome.
As he is wont to do.
I know, as he is. Oh, there we go. We've got 4 damage coming in from these Snapcasters, and we have a Forbidden Alchemy from David Thomas.
Caleb taking the fish route. He has, it looks like a pair of Dissipates in his hand, so he's basically demanding that David Thomas deal with these 2 Snapcasters, which are actually a pretty substantial clock. There's only 4 turns left before David Thomas dies to the damage from them.
Now, one thing to remember if you are ever on the fish plan, you are not required to counter everything. You only counter that which keeps you from killing your opponent at some point in the future.
Yep.
A lot of people's mistake when it comes to fish is they try to stop everything. Not what you need to do. Just keep your clock going. I see we're going to have a Doomblade. I think you let it happen. I don't know about that right there.
I think Caleb is definitely trying to keep his clock as fast as possible. He doesn't want to. He really doesn't want to draw, basically.
But there's still enough time left that he doesn't have to play that fast.
Well, how much time do you?
There's over 10 minutes.
Okay, that is a bit longer than I had thought there might be. So David Thomas on mono non-basics.
And on no answers, so no Dave Judgment in David's hand. And so, he probably does not have a Doomblade in hand. Snapcaster.
I would have.
That was terrible.
I would have cast that on my own turn.
Yeah, main phase it. He's got end of your turnitis here.
Sure.
Because what you immediately have the Doomblade to kill the tap out Caleb Durward, and then you're facing off with Snapcaster v Snapcaster. Caleb suddenly has to have an answer to your Snapcaster to maintain a clock. That was not so good. And Caleb actually just lets that happen.
Wait, what did he? He didn't. What's going on?
Nothing got flashed back at the end of the turn
Didn't he have
either.
a Doomblade? Oh, the Doomblade got dissipated.
The Doomblade got dissipated. There we go. Okay, that's reasonable.
Explains much better what's going on.
Okay, so David was casting the Snapcaster as a Doomblade, basically.
Okay. It's like, now I'm going to Snapcaster again.
And I'm going to target this counterspell in my yard, perhaps. If there is one. Elish Norn on Caleb's side.
Along with a, looks like Jace Memory Adept and Blue Sun Zenith. Though those are not so impressive with only 4 lands. So, Forbidden Alchemy. Well, while David Thomas is down to 8 life here, those 8 life are likely to be all he needs if he manages to stabilize.
And now the tone of the game, the tenor works, has completely changed.
It goes from Caleb trying to beat David down as fast as possible to David trying to find a way to actually kill Caleb.
Yeah. Now, one of the things to remember is you can attempt, if you are a deck, to play outside of your archetype. Caleb Durward here attempted essentially to shift into being an aggro control deck. And the thing is that when you try to do that... Oh, 1 card. When you try to do that, you might be able to hold it off for a couple of moments, but the longer time passes, the less likely you're going to be able to hold it off.
Yep.
One of the older articles that I read that I wrote about that exact concept is the strategic moment. So if you're looking for more information on that kind of things, just look up my old article, The Strategic Moment.
It's definitely, to be fair, I personally have a lot of trouble playing under time pressure.
Oh, time pressure is very hard.
At the World Championships, not this year, but last year, I managed to crumble from a 9-1 start, in large part due to playing a control deck that I wasn't particularly familiar with and ending up under time pressure for a bunch of rounds. And it really just put me in positions that I didn't feel that I was particularly well versed in dealing with, and ended up losing a lot of matches that I really felt like I could have won. So
at the end of the turn there, it looks like David Thomas is Forbidden Alchemying, and I didn't quite catch what he got. But yeah, like, it is hard to play under time pressure. Time pressure is a killer. It's
definitely very, very difficult to make the sort of decisions that both of these players have had a lot of success before. Both of these players are clearly strong players, and their decisions here could very well be a result of not really necessarily feeling like they have the time to think about things.
Unburial rights.
And that is at least going to have an attempted dissipate. Oh no, it's not a dissipate. He's alchemying. Is that not a dissipate in Caleb's hand? Oh, never mind. There's a spell bomb in play. Get you.
The answer.
I was very confused for a second. I was like, he's tapping 3 mana. So
There's a land, and I expect a go.
Yep. So the clock is winding down. We're down to
8 minutes.
8
Just under 8
left.
minutes.
So both players are definitely playing at an extremely brisk pace. So certainly no fault of theirs if they go to time in this case.
Dissipate for the Wormcoil engine. It dissipate back, and I think we have a mana leak, or is that all that we got?
Nope.
Wormcoil is out there. Oblivion Ring is an answer if he has it.
There is an Elish Norn in Caleb's hand. That does not...
That blunts the Wormcoil, certainly.
Yeah.
He's what? 1 mana short?
He has
There's
Day of
the
Judgment
7th
as well.
mana.
He could Day of Judgment. How many cards are in David Thomas's hand?
1, I think.
So if he Day of Judgments, though there is, I believe, that Unburial Rights is waiting in David's yard.
There is an Unburial Rights. That's the first bottom card in the yard for David Thomas. You see 3 mana?
That does look like 3 mana.
Untap. 3 mana.
Alchemy.
Forbidden Alchemy in the main
looking
phase.
for Oblivion Ring. That's his best answer.
Think twice. It looks like it's going to be what he's going to get.
And is that
Or a
timely
land, probably
reinforcements?
land.
Oh, that's an Isolated Chapel. I thought that was a white card.
Lays the land. Don't cast anything, I don't think. Just say go, and you've got 4 turns before you're dead. So you've got time.
Yep.
Not on the clock, but in the clockless game, you have time.
Yeah.
All of these moments that he's thinking, I mean, that is a resource he's eating up. I don't think you can Day of Judgment because that Unburial Rights is just problematic. There's nothing else in David Thomas's yard that he can do until there's something in the yard.
Right.
And I think his hand is actually not particularly good.
Yep. Caleb agrees, passes right back. So David Thomas untaps with 2 cards, now 3 cards in hand. Wormcoil comes in, puts David Thomas back up to a more comfortable 14 life, and puts Caleb Durward at the same.
14-14, all of the work Caleb did in the early parts of the game.
That Snapcaster
Gone.
has been nullified.
A Sun Titan in David Thomas's hand. If I were David Thomas, I would say go. Let that Wormcoil do the work. This is something that David Thomas seems to not really be excited about.
Yeah,
He's very...
In the previous games, David has committed, I would argue, overcommitted to the board. But here he is patient and waiting on his Wormcoil.
So for those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Brian Kibler. This is the last round of the Swiss. 10 rounds of Standard. Caleb Durward and David Thomas facing off in Game 3 for a top 8 slot in this Star City Games Live Open Series here in St. Louis. Caleb tapping way down. Elish Norn, perhaps? No, end of the turn, my bad. Forbidden Alchemy. And he finds land? Is that 4 land? Okay. We can get a quick pause before we get too much further.
So we're just checking a little bit in the game state here. We have some reports that things may not be as they should be.
For those of you out there in the Twitterverse, thank you very much for your eyes. Now remember, throughout this weekend, if you do want to talk to us at all, just send us tweets at SCG Live. And Brian and I also both do have our own Twitter accounts. BM Kibler is Brian, and I am Adrian L. Sullivan. And we're going to wait to see what the results are of this.
So for
Okay, the judges have determined there was a question about whether or not there was an extra land that was played, and I think they're still resolving it. But right now, it looks like the judge is saying that there was not. Now, one of the things that happens sometimes when we're watching from here, or when we watching from this vantage point, sometimes like there will be a rearrangement of a card that will occasionally make it look as though it was just laid, but that isn't necessarily the case.
So Caleb is in the tank. It looks like he has a second day of judgment now.
Is that a Gideon?
I believe that there's 2 J of judgments, 1 foil, 1 non-foil.
I see the Elishnorn and I see the day.
So it looks like Day, Elishnorn, Jace, and is that Alchemy? Was that Volition?
Volition Reigns. Oh, Doctor.
Oh dear.
Volition Reigns is one of the cards from the sideboard that is devastating in the blue matchups. Go. What is your best card? I will take it.
That's mine, not yours.
End of the turn, we've got a Forbidden Alchemy. Flashed back from David Thomas. There are less than 2 minutes left on the clock, but I'm willing to bet that the judge review of that land situation almost certainly is going to award them a couple of minutes at least.
Usually our feature matches end up having a little bit of extra time as well because of the time that it takes for them to set up and get ready on camera. So, but the time is certainly winding down in this.
Look at those life totals. A total reversal of where they were before. We see an Oblivion Ring. Oblivion Ring comes into play, gets rid of Volition Reigns, and back comes the Wormcoil engine.
So we are back where we started, though I think Caleb has maybe a bit of confirmation that David's hand is
and he taps. What is he doing?
Oh no.
No.
Yeah, I mean, David. I guess David's he's just trying to put the nail in the coffin, but he just doesn't have to. That Wormcoil was going to win the game by itself.
And now Caleb can go day. And actually, he has a Oblivion Ring now, so he could.
Does he?
I think he just drew an Oblivion Ring.
Maybe. I see Day. I see 2 blue cards. That was Blue Sun Zenith that he just.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So it looks like Day, Blue Sun Zenith, and Elishnorn is his hand. So.
Day number 1.
Day. Then we're gonna see.
Maybe he goes.
Day number 2.
Day Jace.
Oh, Jace, maybe.
I don't like Day Jace. I don't think that's very effective, honestly. Day go.
He has 6 mana.
Thanks for coming out.
Oh, he's counting the library.
Oh, he's thinking about blue sunning his opponent.
Maybe.
He just counted his opponent's library.
I mean, he has Jace and Blue Sun.
Right.
So he could Jace.
Jace 10, untap Blue Sun Zenith U.
Caleb is at. Yeah, I think you just have to day. I mean, if you get mana leak, you get.
Day by day.
And he does.
Mana leak.
But that does leave him with Blue Sun, Elishnorn as well. Maybe he could have just. Now he goes to 2 life. That is not a very high life total. Unburial Rites, and that Wormcoil comes right back. Oh, I didn't realize that Wormcoil was in the yard.
Oh yeah.
Ooh. Or rather, I didn't realize the Unburial Rites were still in the yard.
Yeah. Hence the day being like something I wasn't so excited about.
Yeah, but I'm definitely. Caleb, I believe, is at 2.
At 2, not enough there.
It is, I think. It looks like Caleb is conceding.
He's checking to see if he can do it. I don't think he has anywhere near enough mana. I don't see. Yep.
Yeah, I think.
I think the play was actually to
Day,
go
then Jace.
Day then
Know
Jace. Yeah, and it wouldn't have worked, but it would also mean that he would still have
A day.
a day and be able to do that through the mana leak.
Right. Though if David did bring back his Wormcoil, he'd still be in a pretty terrible spot and would still probably die. Though he could have, if David didn't kill the Jace, it might be able to mill him out. I didn't really get a quick count on the library there, but
Elish Norn.
No, I think he's Blue Zenithing.
Blue Zenithing himself to try to find a day. There is a day. Not enough.
Yeah, that's not going to do it. So he can day, but then he just dies to the tokens or Gideon, both of them.
God, look at all that stuff in play.
Yeah, this is.
Oh, there's a Volition Reigns.
Oh dear.
Oh, Oblivion Ring on Oblivion Ring. Bring back. Get that.
I completely forgot about that because it was set off to the side.
And also because of that very, very sloppy graveyard.
Yeah.
It just. I thought that there was
this
game is still on.
It's still happening. Yeah, seriously, this looks like he's playing Dredge over here. He has a million cards. So David. So I think he has to chump Gideon.
And that makes Caleb's life total just the same.
Yep, he's not in a particularly different spot. He does get 2 tokens.
2 tokens.
But any of those that hits him is still lethal.
Just make sure he gets his 2 tokens.
Yep. Actually, he does not gain life. It prevents all damage.
Oh, he's dead.
He's just dead.
Oh!
As soon as he put it together, I was like, oh yeah.
Oh boy.
So, wow. That was a pretty crazy back and forth game, but David Thomas wins the match. 2 games to 1. That was
wow.
Yeah, wow. That was very cool.
That was some awesome magic.
There were some very cool things going on there.
Yeah. I will not use the word great. That was awesome. Awesome magic.
Very cool things going on. All right, well that is
boy.
round 10. Round 10 is over. We have the time has been called. This is the last match we're going to be watching for this round, but we do still have the quarterfinals to come.
Wow, that was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So I believe that means David Thomas will be in the top 8.